Let me tell you a little story about a man named Grover Cleveland. Born in Caldwell, New Jersey on March 18, 1837, he would become the only president to serve 2 non-consecutive terms and therefore the only president to be counted twice. His full name was Stephen Grover Cleveland. However, he never used his first name in his adult life. After declining a full scholarship to become a minister, he headed west where he took an interest in law and eventually started his own practice. His fascination led him to become sheriff in New York, where he earned the equivalent of $780,000 by today's standards. A few years later, he became mayor of New York City and governor of New York. In 1884, Grover Cleveland was elected as the nation's 22nd president. Cleveland entered the presidency as a bachelor, but 2 years later he married Frances Folsom, becoming the only president to have a wedding in the White House. At 21, Frances became the youngest first lady ever, and together with Grover raised 5 children. In 1888, he lost re-election to Benjamin Harrison. However, in 1892, Cleveland was once again elected, now as the 24th president. He is the only Democrat elected to the presidency between 1860 and 1912. On June 24, 1908, Grover Cleveland suffered a heart attack and died at the age of 71. And there you go, a little story about a man named Grover. Let me tell you a little story about a man named Benjamin Harrison. Born in North Bend, Ohio on August 20th, 1833, he would become the only president to be the grandson of a president, William Henry Harrison. He was also the great-grandson of Benjamin Harrison V, one of the original signers of the Declaration of Independence. It would seem that he was bred for a life of greatness. At 20, he married Caroline Lavinia Scott and together raised 2 children. He attended law school and eventually opened his own practice. During the Civil War, he served as a brigadier general and was elected senator from Indiana in 1880. In 1888, Benjamin Harrison was elected as the nation's 23rd president. His inauguration took place during a rainstorm and was brief, half the length of his grandfather's, who gave the longest address in presidential history. He was the first president to enjoy electricity at the White House. During his administration, the country's annual budget reached $1 billion for the first time in history. He also added 6 states to the Union, more than any president since Washington. 2 weeks before losing re-election, Harrison lost his wife to tuberculosis. On March 13, 1901, Benjamin Harrison died of the flu in Indiana at the age of 67. And there you go, a little story about a man named Ben.
Benjamin Harrison, 1888 to 1892. Sherman Antitrust Act. Worked to protect the American economy by eliminating monopolies, act run by Senator John Sherman and signed into action by President Harrison in 1890. McKinley Tariff. McKinley Tariff increased the duties on all imports by 50% in order to protect American industry from foreign competition. Many Americans believe the tariff was a way for wealthy industrialists to make large amounts of money off of the government. Because of this, American voters decided to vote against the Republican Party. Under President Harrison, the United States admitted 6 new states, including Montana, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, North Dakota, and South Dakota. The following is a paragraph from Benjamin Harrison's inaugural address in 1889. My promise is spoken, yours unspoken, but not the less real and solemn. The people of every state have here their representatives. Surely I do not misinterpret the spirit of the occasion when I assume that the whole body of people covenant with me and with each other today to support and defend the Constitution and the Union of States. To yield willing obedience into all the laws to each and every other citizen is equal civil and political rights. Entering thus solemnly into covenant with each other, we may reverently invoke, confidently expect the favor and help of Almighty God, that He will give me wisdom, strength, fidelity, and to our people a spirit of fraternity and love, of righteousness and peace. Many Americans were dissatisfied with Harrison's time in office. He had left the government in debt, and when Grover Cleveland was elected in 1892, he had to try and keep America out of a depression. Panic of 1893 was caused by the railroad industry collapse and the collapse of the gold market.